Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of D-Backs Dispatch with your hosts, Brandon, Brett, and Gabe. Here to talk a little bit about obviously some off-season news of the D-Backs, not necessarily a trade or a signing, but a little bit of in-house cleanup with some of the arbitration-eligible players. We're also going to touch a little bit on some of the Chase Field news that kind of came out lately. And then also talk a little bit about and answer some of your guys' viewer questions, along with some of the other moves that not really major, but roster moves are roster moves. We're here to discuss them. But either way, if this is your first time here at D-Backs Dispatch, again, we appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. If you guys could like, comment, subscribe, it really does help out the algorithm. Rate us 5 stars as well. I know that definitely goes a long way on the podcast side. If you guys haven't already checked out any of the articles over on azsnakepit.com, go and check them out. Actually, just before we went live, we were talking about one of the ones that a fellow Discord member of ours, Jeff, and longtime writer over at the Snake Pit, put out, talking about the death ball and how it's a pretty important pitch for the Diamondbacks going into 2025. So that was a good read if you guys like that. As I mentioned, we got a Discord. It's free. It's in the socials below. Make sure you guys click the link, hop on in. Got a bunch of other D-Backs fans in there along with the three of us, so it's an easier way for you guys to kind of like get in touch with us if you have anything else outside of the show you want to ask us. And then lastly, make sure you guys follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky. We got a bunch of memes that we post not only throughout the season, especially with the news about Verlander coming to the West. It's making Pavin Smith very happy. We had a few bangers on that going off. So again, make sure you guys follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky. But as I mentioned in the beginning, we are here to at least open the show with some of the arbitration news. I'll let Gabe in a second here kind of break down exactly what arbitration is, give you some of the details if you guys aren't familiar with it. But there were 9 players eligible for arbitration, and the D-Backs actually reached agreement with all 9 of them. So they don't have to go through the lengthy process where they basically tell the player, not to their face, but to like a judge, like, oh yeah, this guy, he's actually not worth that much money. Don't let me pay him that much. So don't have to worry about burning any bridges. The 9 players that were under arbitration eligibility were Zac Gallen, Josh Naylor, Ryan Thompson, AJ Puck, Geraldo Perdomo, Kevin Ginkel, Joe Mantiply, Pavin Smith, and lastly Kyle Nelson. The 2 that got the biggest payday out of all of them were Zac Gallen at $13.5 million, and then Josh Naylor at $10.9. Both of them actually got a few million less than what they were projected. I know Zac Gallen was projected around like 14. Naylor was anywhere from 12 to 14. So a little bit of money saved there. A few other guys got higher than their projections. Like I believe AJ Puck got, almost $500,000 more. Geraldo Perdomo got a nice little bump of what he was projected. So there was a few guys that, rightfully so, got a nice little payday. But my question to you, gentlemen, obviously, I need you guys in the chat, which again, if you have any questions, make sure you guys put it in the chat. We'll start at the end of the show. We'll go over some of your guys' viewer questions in here, along with some of the ones that we got in our Discord earlier. But my question to you guys is, were there any of these values for the players mentioned a surprise to you? And then also, like I said, Gabe, I'm going to start with you. Before you kind of, give your thoughts on it, can you give us a little bit of a breakdown of what exactly arbitration is for those that might not be as familiar with it?
So the way it breaks down is originally, like if after 3 years of service time, a player becomes arbitration eligible. So it's a way that they can get paid. That's not the minimum because, they start off with about 500,000, it goes up to 6 and then to 7 after 3 years. And then the last 3 years, they're able to go into arbitration and at least earn a little bit of money based on their performance. So the way it works is the player and their representatives, they'll come up with a number. So in this case, like for example, Gallen has very good numbers throughout his careers, and you can give him a bit of a comp to fellow D-back now, Corbin Burns in his last arbitration year, he earned $15 million. So Zac Gallen doesn't have the same hardware as Corbin Burns, so he can't be at exactly 15 million, but he can get around that amount. So what he would do is probably enter in, we're looking 15 million. The D-backs will counter, let's say 12 million. And usually the negotiations, it's a bit of a dog and pony show for these guys. Like each one tries to flex a little bit. And then for the most part, you would hope that they come into an actual agreement and don't go into arbitration. So in this case, Zac Gallen got 13.5 million. So that's probably the number that he was looking for in the first place. But like I said, you try to start a little bit high and then you just meet in the middle, which this seems to be it. But the arbitration process would be if Gallen and the D-backs can't decide on a number. If he was saying, he was adamant at being a 14, D-backs 13 and a half, they would go to arbitration. So that would mean that they go in front of a judge and a panel, and they each review each side's arguments as to why they deserve it. So let's say in this case, Gallen asked for 14, D-backs 13 and a half. The judge and the arbiters, they decide. There is no in between in this case. It's either what the player asked for, or what the team asked for. And what happens in the arbitration is when they give each case, there's a lot of bad blood that happens there. They'll use different stats, to show why he deserves it or why he doesn't, why he does deserve it, why he doesn't deserve it. And, you can find stats to fill any sort of narrative. 76% of people know that. And, there's a lot of bad blood that happens. Like a couple years ago, Corbin Burns with Milwaukee, he was looking for about 11 or 12 million. They couldn't come to an agreement, so they went to arbitration. Brewers put in 10 million, and according to him, it essentially blamed him for not making the playoffs in 2022. And so there's a lot of bad blood there. And so that's why he was traded. And this happens a lot of times. Same with Chris Bryant. So you don't want to go to arbitration because it can cause a lot of bad blood, like Brett said. So that's the gist of it. And so you guys have anything to add to that?
I mean, I think you can hit the nail on the head there, especially even in the little breakdown video I had that Josh is putting together eventually. Is the Corbin Burns one was the one that stuck out in my mind, where obviously might not have had the best season, but the fact that they were kind of going in there saying like, "Oh yeah, you're the reason why we missed the playoffs, so we're not going to pay you money." That's a great example of, like you said, it's an easy way to burn bridges.
Joey brought up a good question here, Gabe. Is it all guaranteed?
Yes, there's no, incentives or anything in this sort of contract, because you're just coming to agreement about what you're going to get paid for that season. And most of the time there is an agreement. Last year, I believe, the only one who didn't really come into agreement was Josh Rojas. Everyone else, for the most part, most players know what they're worth, and they'll, they might want to get a little bit more. I know right now, Jaron Duran, the Red Sox, they don't want to pay him an extra 500,000. I think one of the Dodgers players, they don't want to pay an extra 10,000 or something like that. And I don't know. This is when you realize how cheap some owners can be, unfortunately. And so that's why you see a lot of guys get traded after the arbitration, because they are not happy, because like I said, the stats will show one thing and the team will just twist it and show you, like we're saying about Corbin Burns, they'll say, this is the reason why we missed the playoffs. Like you can hit 30 home runs and they'll be like, well, he could have hit 40, but if he didn't do this, he didn't do that. So it's just really, really ugly. And thankfully, nobody had to go to arbitration, especially, with the type of dog that Gallen is. I don't think it would have been very fun or nice to hear what would come out of that. And I think the question you said, were any of the values a surprise? Honestly, no. If there's anybody that I was a little surprised about, was just Perdomo, just because his numbers overall. I know we love Perdomo. He's team captain, but for that amount that he got, 2.5 million, usually it is for a guy who's a little bit more elite than he has been. He's had he has one really bad season, then one decent season, and then last year he didn't play much, so he just had a relatively mediocre season. I believe his OPS plus for his career is something like 87, or like he's not necessarily a great player offensively. He's a good defender and just somehow hits RBIs in the best times. But being a captain, so who knows? Who knows what happened in that case? I'd be curious to see if the D-backs were willing to just give him what he wanted, just because they do seem to really love him. And like we saw last year, as soon as they had a media day for spring training, Lovello just straight up said there is no competition for the shortstop position. That position is Geraldo Perdomo's. Yeah. So in this case, it could have just been the D-backs just probably asked him and his representatives, what do you guys want? He said 2.5. Right, fine. There probably was no negotiations on this part. So that did surprise me. Like I said, when you see guys with those sort of numbers, they're usually more in the 1.5 to 2 mil.
Yeah, Perdomo was one of the ones that stuck out to me, like you said, just seeing the jump, obviously, guys like Ryan Thompson got, kind of in between what he projected. AJ Puck, rightfully so, after the season he had, got, around 300,000 more than even the projections had him. But I guess, like you said, maybe because of Domo being our risk king, maybe because he's that like leader on the field, it was one of those where they were like, you're worth it. You're a captain in the clubhouse. We want to give you this extra bag, make you, know that we appreciate your services here, that what you've done so far. Obviously, he's got more time with the team still to, prove that elite status like you're talking about, if that is in his game somewhere. But yeah, I think that was definitely one that stuck out to me. But Brandon, I'm kind of curious if there was any, maybe if you kind of are in agreement with us on Perdomo being one that stuck out to you, or if there was any of the other, of the 9 player, or I guess any of the other 8 of the 9 players that their arbitration deals kind of stuck out to you and made you go like, we actually got him for that much.
The one that jumps out to me immediately, just based on the actual estimates from Trade Rumors and Spot Track, Josh Naylor. Like, both of them were not close at all to me. Like, as we see here, Josh Naylor, Trade Rumors was at 12 million. Spot Track says 14.2, and we got him at 10.9. Now, what I'm curious, I'm like, is that a precursor potentially for if they want to bring him back? Is that the price range that we're looking at maybe for Josh Naylor? Maybe they bump it to 12 or 13 a year. Like, I feel like that's very doable, and depending on how Josh Naylor plays for me, will kind of determine, like, should they bring him back? Like, I thought they were going to try and do an extension with him, because why make the trade on a guy that has 1 year left before he hits free agency? And he signed this deal, so to me, like, I guess he's fine with not having a long-term deal. So he's really betting on himself for this one season to hopefully potentially get paid. All jokes aside, with Pavin Smith, I think he's worth more. I think he's worth a little bit more than 1.5. I think it's closer to 2, personally, for me. Like, I know that I trash Pavin probably more than anyone in this group, mainly because of my friend Ethan, because he loves Pavin so much. Ethan, big time supporter of the channel, so we appreciate that. But no, like, I think Pavin's going to have a lot on his shoulders this upcoming season. As of right now, the way the roster is constructed, I think he's going to get more at bats than we are comfortable with. Personally, I think they're going to give him probably playing almost every day, whether it's at first base or DH. I'm just glad that we not brought back. I know Brett was kind of giving me a hand. He was like, they didn't go anywhere. I'm like, but they could have. If this goes to arbitration, just like the Corbin Burns situation, like, it can really break a relationship between a player and a team. And like we kind of spoke about what happened with Corbin Burns. They blamed him, then they lowballed him, and then like, actually, you know what? Let's just freaking trade you. So it's nice that we still got Kevin Ginkel is going to be back there. AJ Puck's going to be back there. Ryan Thompson, Joe Mantiply. I didn't even think Joe Mantiply never crossed my mind, by the way. I completely forgot about Joe Mantiply, if we're being honest. Like, because I don't think he's a high leverage guy. I think he's a low to medium leverage guy. Like, I know he's a lefty, and I know he did strike out. He was doing really well when he was facing Shohei for one series. Like Shohei could not get a hit off of Joe Mantiply, and he was our one All-Star back in the season that we do not like to talk about. So, yeah,
That season is like Voldemort. You just don't mention it. You just don't bring it up.
You don't mention that season. And then, yeah, kind of like we said with Jerry, his value is something that does not show up in the box score. He is clubhouse leadership in the dugout. Like, that's where his value is. So I think with him, he's like, just give me something. Like, just make sure the money doesn't go down. Because when he played last year, he was good. Like, he plays, I would say, just above average defense. Like, he's not a Gold Glover, but he's not a liability there. Like he was that 21 the season where he played. That was such a trial, like just trial by fire for Jerry. Had like over almost 500 at bats and was batting like 205. Like it was like I was like, if this guy plays every day next year, we're in so much trouble. He did, and he made the All-Star team. So to me, that is like the improvement that he made from 21 to 22 to 23 was like just mind-boggling how much he improved. So
Yeah, he made. I didn't realize he made 14 errors at shortstop in 2022.
Yeah,
That's
it was
crazy.
That was
like,
well, and it's so
that was the year
funny.
that Nick Ahmed got hurt, so
Yeah.
he was literally just thrown out there.
They didn't
And
have
they're
a
like,
choice.
figure it out. Sorry.
they're like, we aren't gonna win anyway. So Jerry, just learn on the job. And I think that and then whatever he did that offseason in winter ball, like he improved by leaps and bounds. Like just his eye, like if you go and watch his eye of the strike zone from 22 to 23, like he knows it better than almost anyone on this team. Now that Walker's gone, I'll probably say Jerry's probably the one that knows the strike zone the best on this team. Like he is, I'm like, Jerry, how do you lay, like he lays off the pitch that just misses the edge of the zone. I'm like, Jerry, how do you lay off of that? Like that is
it's almost Soto-esque with how he'll just confidently watch a pitch that I know the box on the screen isn't fully accurate with, what the actual strike zone is, but there's times where it looks like it's maybe barely a gnat's ass away from hitting that edge, which
that's
we all know
a
umpires.
unique description.
Well, you never heard about that? Yeah, so that's one. I mean, it's just a little bit away from being right on the edge there and being a strike, but he just looks at it like Soto and he's just like, nope, that's a ball.
This please, like Jerry, like God, the amount of almost home runs that this guy has over the last 2 seasons, like if he could have average power, I think you could rank him like in the top half of shortstops in this league, but he doesn't have the power. Like we said, he's our running and scoring position king. If there's runners in scoring position, he's going to drive them in.
Yes, looking at some of his stats from last year, I mean, I think if he had a little bit more power, obviously, he missed a month of time, but off of B-WAR alone, he had a 3.5 B-WAR last year, which I guess maybe just like kind of glanced over that. I didn't realize it. Like in only 337 at bats, that's pretty solid. I wonder if a lot of that comes from maybe the walks and then like his defense, because I mean he did have 5 errors last year. I know errors are a little bit of an overhyped and like over embellished stat sometimes. I know some bookkeepers will give a guy an error when that was clearly a single, or the other way around where maybe they'll give the hitter a single when it was clearly an error. But I mean, I didn't realize he was actually that solid, at least going off of just his baseball reference WAR.
Yeah, and I think something to think about when it comes to Perdomo. When he debuted, he was only like 21 years old. He was very, very young.
He's still very young.
He was born in 99. Like he's still a baby in a lot of ways, but it's just he had development right at the major league level. Like who knows how he would have been if he would have stayed in AAA in Reno, up until he was 22, 23 years old. He maybe would have developed a little bit different. He might have just been what he was last year right away, but like I said, trial by fire, he had to become great right away. And I mean he did pretty decent. I mean, a 344 on base percentage is ridiculous. That's really, really good. And if he has more power, gets that slugging to 450, just hits a couple more home runs, you're talking about him being a potentially close to 800 OPS guy, which is crazy. And again, he's very young.
As a 9 hitter, by the way,
number 9
he
hitter.
Will always be the 9-hole hitter unless Catel's out that day or Carroll is out. Like, I'm pretty sure that's his spot because it's like a second leadoff hitter. Because the way that he is a really good leadoff hitter. He takes a lot of pitches. He'll get on base. Like, the amount of like big time rallies or big time innings we would see last year that started because of a Jerry at bat, whether it was a ground out, a fly out, or even a walk, started with Jerry. That's something you don't find in the box score, though. That is something that you only see if you watch this team day in and day out like we do. We know how, and the team does. The team knows how impactful Jerry is. So, yeah, they're going to probably give him, like Gabe said, probably more than he probably deserved to show that they really do appreciate all the extra playing stuff that he does. Things that just don't show up. If you do what a lot of baseball fans do and they just go box score watch.
And I think we saw it last year too with the defense. Like the defense was terrible that first month with Blaze and all the other guys that plug in there. Terrible defense, just errors that were costing games. As soon as Perdomo was plugged back in there, suddenly it just all became a shutdown, defense, and then they ended up with the best defense in baseball.
Yeah, especially, I mean, imagine, I know it wasn't a one or an exact correlation, but we saw how he was with, Jamar, and he's borderline the captain. I know the D-backs, I saw I don't know if it was a Brooksgate tweet, but it was one of those where the last player to be named a captain of each team, and the Diamondbacks were like one of like 10 or 15, something like that have never had a captain, which again, captain's pretty overrated sometimes. I'm not going to lie. It's not like football. It's not basketball. You don't need to have a captain necessarily, but if there was one, I think it would definitely be Perdomo, just because he's probably a leader in the clubhouse at this point. He's definitely a leader on the field, whether it's, calming down a guy like Jamar or just being, like you were saying, Gabe, that reassurance at short where you don't have to worry, it's not maybe necessarily Nick Ahmed in his Gold Glove days where anytime a ball was hitting that area, you're like, okay, a play's being made. Like it could be hitting the deep short hole. That's a sentence. It could be hit in the deep part of the hole where he's gonna, make a crazy Jeter-esque jump throw with the arm, or he's gonna, make a diving play up the middle and stop him. But he is definitely, in my opinion, deserving of it. And it is nice to see him get a little bit of a pay. And who knows, maybe like I said earlier, if he didn't miss that month, maybe he would have had a little more home runs. He does need to get in the weight room a little bit. Maybe, hit up like Popeyes or something else, get some more protein in his diet, do a little bit more weight training. Because, to your guys' point, if he can get a little bit more power, he would definitely be up there, kind of like the all-star player that we saw he was in 2023. And, to your point, especially Brandon, we watch our team. A lot of players or a lot of fans watch their team mostly, and they don't watch a lot of other teams. I know a lot of Mets fans were unhappy in 23 because Perdomo was an all-star over Francisco Lindor. But, just kind of at the time when the all-star voting was going along, Perdomo had a really solid case. And I think that he can get back to that, especially in 2025. But, it's just nice to see that, honestly, all 9 of the players avoided arbitration, and we don't have to worry about any bridges being burned.
Thank you. Well, and this whole thing coming up with Gallen, the fact that they avoided arbitration to me is huge. Means that, okay, so that's still a chance. Also, there's still
You're telling me there's a chance.
So you're telling me there's a chance. And this also, I think, really puts on hold the fact of trading. Like, people's like, oh, just trade Young, try and get something for him. But I think with this, the fact that it looks like they're pretty close as to what they feel he's worth. Now, this doesn't necessarily correlate to him signing back here as a free agent, because he probably wants, after seeing what Corbin Burns got, I wouldn't be surprised if he wants double. Like, he wants that 25 to 27 AAV. So
who knows? Maybe Burns being, I know it doesn't matter if they have the same agent, but who knows? Maybe Burns and Gallen being both Boris clients, maybe it'll kind of talk Zac Gallen and staying here a little bit. But only time will tell. But do want to shout out everybody in the what were you gonna say?
No, I'm just saying the way Gallen pitched last year, he doesn't deserve the 25 to 27 AAV.
No, but
That's
we've seen.
probably why he's like, yeah, based on last season, yeah, I think I'll take 13.
But I know it's obviously like great point. You got to go off of what they've done lately for you, or at least what they've done as of late. That's kind of what goes in the contracts. But in Jolly Olive's newest video, when he was talking about the Diamondbacks and like their pitcher contracts which they gave out, which very depressing video, honestly. Like
He's not wrong.
the
He
only
wasn't
successful ones were
wrong.
really what Randy Johnson, Zac Greinke, and hopefully Corbin Burns. But in that part, one of the parts of the video I think he was talking about Zac Greinke, where Zac Greinke ranks among, I believe, the top 5 in a lot of the Diamondbacks pitching stats. Zac Gallen's in that same top 5. Like he is up there. So he might not have had the best 2024, and he might not be here in 2026. Maybe some other team gives him the money that him and Boris are looking for. But I do think that it's definitely worth keeping a guy like that, because I know it's not technically homegrown because we did trade for him, but I think it's definitely going to be worth trying to keep him around. But like I said, I did want to, again, really quickly shout out all the people in the YouTube chat. Joey, the basketball and football guy. Appreciate you guys. Jeff, my man I was talking about earlier with the banger article on the death ball. Make sure you guys go check out that. Our OG legend, AZ Bubba. Always appreciate seeing you in here. There was a quick question here on the topic of arbitration that I believe Joey had earlier, asking if meant on the contract and all that. Does it normally go to the player more than the team, or even? Or does the benefit more go to the player or the team, or is it kind of an even benefit, kind of avoiding arbitration?
Yeah, it's supposed to be kind of a mutual thing where both kind of get what they wanted. The player gets, a lot more money compared to what they were making before. Sometimes you're talking about triple, even sometimes 10 times what they were making before. Like I know Vlad Jr. more than doubled his.
Yeah,
I think he
wasn't
made
he
something like 10 million.
23 or 20?
I think he
It was
got
like
28.
He got 28
was-
million. I think for last year something like 10 million. I mean, it's crazy. Same with Mookie Betts, Shohei, Soto. These guys are all around 30 million. They deserve every penny of that. So again, it's supposed to benefit everybody. The player gets what they deserve, and the team usually is able to save a little bit of money. In this case, do you have the
28
graphic?
and a half. He got 28 and a half.
I'll
Yeah,
buy you a
so
lot of poutine up there.
Yeah, so what was, projected, just like Jeff is saying in the chat that they have a better idea what the payroll is at. And that's kind of the point of this. That's why sometimes they take a little bit longer just to get certain free agents, especially like the more guys on the peripherals rather than the big names, just because they want to know how much they're going to pay. Because let's say that Gallen puts in for 20 million, the arbitration goes his way, he's going to make 20 million. Suddenly, instead of making 13 and a half, they have to pay $7 million more than they were expecting to. So Spot Track and the trade rumors, in their actual totals were very close. They're only off by about $1 million, and the G-backs per policy using that same algorithm that they use, so they probably were like, all right, we have about $1 million in extra in space to work with, to get a DH or another bullpen arm. So depending on where they want to be at in terms of their salary, they at least have $1 million to hopefully put them over the edge, comparatively to other teams.
So Vlad last year was at 19.9. So a decent, still a decent sized jump, but is he worth 20 and a half?
Really quick side tangent. I feel bad for Blue Jays fans. They missed out on Ohtani, Soto, Burns. Bo Bichette says he's going to walk. They're probably going to lose Vladdy. What a terrible time to be north of the border. At least they got their free healthcare and they got some good poutine, so they got something going for them. But before we move on from the arbitration subject, I do want to bring up Kyle's comment here. I thought this was pretty funny and probably a good way to look at it. Saying that going to arbitration, from what I understand, is just kind of a bad time for all parties involved, to be honest. It is basically going to court with your spouse, then expecting to just come back home after. And yeah, it's one of those where I know there, it might not always be a bridge burning experience like it was for Corbin Burns, but I would say probably more than 50% of it is one of those where the player comes out of it and is like, I either don't want to come back here, or they just have a lesser view of the team in their mind. Because like I mentioned in the beginning, Mike Hazen has, I believe, mentioned it before in previous seasons, where going to arbitration is just not a fun, he doesn't like doing it at all. Like I get, sometimes business is business and they're really adamant about their pricing, but it seems like he's definitely more willing to work with some of the players and get them to a comfortable price that they're, okay with for their services, to where they can just kind of avoid that whole messy situation in general, because, like Kyle said, it's probably just not something that I imagine a lot of people or a lot of players in general enjoy going through, because I know I wouldn't. If I was like, you know what, I do this good of work in my job, I feel like I'm worth this much, and then my employer's like, yeah, I'm gonna go like knock your pay down $5 because like I just don't think you're that good. I would definitely be looking for a different job, and I'd be pissed. I'd be like, cool, I'm gonna go give my services to a different place that actually is willing to respect me and my time.
So some notable guys that didn't agree to deals and are going to arbitration. Kyle Tucker, estimated at 16.7. And the other big one to me, Devin Williams, estimated at 8.4. Everyone else is like not a big deal. And you also brought up Jarren Duran. According to Spot Track, he's estimated at only $4 million.
Didn't Tariq Skubal and the Tigers just get $10 million?
So Jarren Duran's his first year arbitration. He's 27 years old, and this is the first time he's put up a season like this. He had been pretty mid to straight up bad for a while, so he's it reflected on that. But Tariq Skubal has been good his whole career, and he got the Cy Young, right? It was him.
Yeah,
he won the Cy Young.
So he's obviously going to get that sort of pay bump. I mean, a lot of these guys, once they win Cy Youngs, if Gallen would have won the Cy Young yesterday, you could be talking about $20+ million for him.
I mean, honestly, it would suck to see him in a walk year, but hey, if either Gallen or Burns wins a Cy Young, that's a pretty good sign that, at least our pitching took a big step forward from what it was in 2024 when we were among the teams like the Rockies, Angels, and White Sox. But, oh my God, please, no more of that. But moving on to unless you guys had any other final arbitration thoughts or anything, we're going to move on to our second topic, which was not really full on a lot of in-depth news, but there was at least somewhat of an update on the Chase Field situation. It was per Alex Weiner on Twitter. Did have a tweet that he went out, but I went and I found the article where he talked about not only the potential that Arizona is going to be getting back an NHL team and all that. Later in the thing, he did talk about the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors chairman and his comments on the Diamondbacks, saying that when he was speaking of the Valley sports team and stadium issues, the Diamondbacks came up in Galvin's comments with the club's lease on Chase Field set to expire in rapidly approaching 2027. He went on to say, Maricopa County owns Chase Field. Although the D-backs are responsible for the operation, management, and maintenance of the ballpark, the Diamondbacks and Maricopa County have expressed their interests or their frustrations with the lease negotiations publicly. Obviously, we talked about it a little bit when it happened, but Derek Hall did mention the quote ridiculous counter proposal on the Arizona Sports Bickley and Marotta show back in September. But the chairman was quoted saying, "I can assure you the board will work very hard with the Diamondbacks on addressing the future of Chase Field." Then went on to say, "I see my role in this as looking out for the taxpayers' best interest, and that's my line in the sand." So for me personally, the taxpayers' best interest, that's my line in the sand. That kind of stood out to me because I know obviously that's always a touchy thing on if stadiums need to use or should use taxpayer money. And if anything, to me that would end up being the big thing that would hold up any deals, and that's kind of what my attention was drawn to. But my question obviously to you gentlemen, everybody in chat again, by the way, which again we appreciate each and every one of you guys in here, or if you're listening on the audio side after the live show, we appreciate you as well. But my question was there anything that the chairman said that had you guys necessarily worried about with the D-backs future in downtown Phoenix? With the team's lease on the stadium ending in 2027, time is quickly running out for both sides to find a solution to keeping the Snakes down there.
I guess for me, I am a little worried just because, they have these new councilmen that come in there and they're all rah, like, oh, I care about the taxpayers, even though we don't pay teachers anything. We're one of the lowest ranks in education. Like, if you really cared about your, taxpayer money, you would divert it to teachers, and you never do. Like, if you drive down a lot of roads here, there's a lot of potholes. Like, this is BS, and I'm going to call it BS because it is. Like,
oh, you mean like Joey just did?
Like Joey did. Like, this is just a load of BS. These guys always come in, they say all this stuff with their chest out, and then at the end of the day, they do nothing. They just get, whatever money they make, and then they just leave. And, we, like I said, Chase Field has a lot of value here. And I don't know what the proposal is, like why they're called it ridiculous. I don't know if they want to tax them more, or if they want them to, like, we don't know. Like, I know they came to a proposal that they can start holding events there, and the D-backs get that revenue. So that's why there's been a lot more concerts there than there had been before. So it's a really difficult situation, and I don't think they should, you know, get rid of the stadium. I know it's outdated, but there's no reason why they can't do to it what they did with the um
Footprint Center.
is it still talking stick? I don't know what it is anymore.
You talking about the Suns?
Footprint, yeah. I want to call it U.S. Airways. That's how old I am. Like,
that's what
it is. It's just like how people still call Chase Bank One.
Yeah,
it'll always
be
like
US Airways. It's burned in my head. Like, I still want to call it, or even America West Arena. But it's, like they renovated the stadium. It looks beautiful on the inside. Before, literally just nothing but concrete. Like, it was so ugly on the inside, and now it's really nice. It's like a whole ass club in there. So there's no reason why the D-backs can't do that. And I think maybe they want, I know that they want the county to put up their end of the bargain that they had originally, said, which was that they would take care of it. And they unfortunately just didn't do it for a couple of decades. And so now the D-backs are footing the bill that the county should have done, since the original part of the contract. And so, like I said, I don't know what the details are. I know this new councilman wants to, pull his deck out and everything, but I don't think I would hope so then that they are able to stay there. Just hopefully they're able to, hold on their end of the bargain. Same with the D-backs. Like, just renovate the stadium. We don't need a new one. I know everyone wants a new flashy ballpark, but Chase is still nice for the most part. Fix the AC, fix the roof. That's all you got to do, honestly. And it starts to be a vibe again. Like, again, all you got to do is just renovate, take some seats out, do some improvements here and there, and because where else are you going to put it? If you don't have the land anymore, where are you going to go? Are you going to go out of state, or you can try to go to where Salt River is? Because that's a whole another problem, because that's a native reservation and they have different rules and regulations there. So I don't know. I mean, all this stuff, unfortunately, is very, very difficult, and a lot of them don't actually say what the proposal is until they actually come out. So it's really hard to gauge what exactly is going through everybody's minds.
Yeah, so one of the comments brought up in the YouTube, like Jeff's, where he's saying seemed to be a two-faced comment. Going to do everything we can for the team, but also not if it costs the taxpayers any money. Those two things can't really coexist, and that is a great point. I know, again, it's always a hot topic, not the store. It's always a subject of great discussion, especially like my dad is always like, they shouldn't use any taxpayer money for the stadium. Like, they're $1 billion owners, they can pay for it themselves, which, might have some truth to it, but it's also one of those where I just don't like, there's always going to be, I feel like, some taxpayer money involved in every stadium. So it is, I'm not fully on that boat, but I see the point. I like William's comment saying that trading Montgomery is in the taxpayers' best interest, and yes, I think so too. But Jeff also did make a good point in his article earlier about why if Montgomery and his death ball can get back to the 2023 form, maybe trading him isn't in the best interest. And I know Gabe's on that same boat, so maybe the D-backs saw his article, maybe they're trying to hold back their trades for him. And then the other comment I liked was from Kyle Dannon, saying that he loves Chase. To me, it's incredibly iconic. Just want Chase to be updated a bit. Sure, a new stadium would be nice, but I'd rather that money be put towards renovation and the team itself. Kind of like echoing what Gabe's point is there's not really many other certain places to go. You don't want to get into the same situation the Coyotes did, where you keep getting turned down on all these other locations. Just up the lease, figure out a new deal, put some renovations, kind of like what the Suns did with the Footprint Center. It's already down there to where, like, it's the iconic area. Even like Joey and William are saying, where like they still call it the Bob. Like, just keep it there. There's a lot of memories, a lot of moments that happen in there that we just shouldn't just abandon because getting a brand new shiny ballpark is the new thing here. But Brandon, kind of same question to you. Are you on the same boat as Gabe and I, where the comments about taxpayer money stuck out to you more than anything else in his short mention about the D-backs and the stadium issues, or was everything kind of like, a little bit on the up and up? And did it give you a little bit of hope that the D-backs will not have this issue come 2027?
His comments were nothing. His comments were a very stereotypical city councilman comment. He said something, but didn't say anything. Like, it did not change my opinion whatsoever. Like, I am worried that this team we're going to lose another team. We've lost the Coyotes. I really don't want to lose the Diamondbacks because baseball is my first love out of any sport. Now, I do like how the team last year started to make some improvements. They added those new lights, and those new lights look really, really cool when they use them. So that's progress. But Chase Field, Bank One Ballpark, is one of the more older stadiums in all of Major League Baseball, which is so crazy to think about. It's, 25 years old? Like 97, 98?
I think like 26 now.
Well, no, you're getting closer to, it's almost 30 at this point, I think.
Yeah, like almost every other team in Major League Baseball has a new, there's there's Fenway, there's Wrigley. There's I think it's less than 5 teams have older stadiums, and they're old. Like, you got Dodger Stadium too. Like, all of the iconic stadiums are the only ones that have basically been standing longer.
Dodger Stadium got like $100 million renovation they're doing currently.
Yeah.
Dank, we don't need that. We don't need that energy in here, Dank. We don't. No. I will fly to Utah and I will fight the Utahns, and I will just throw down. I don't even care. They're not allowed to have another one of our teams.
Yes, Rays even got a new stadium.
Yeah, I think this is just always a difficult topic. I mean, it happens every time for teams. Like, usually they don't leave, which gives me hope, because how many times have we seen this happen? Same with the Cardinals. I believe they played at the Tempe AS Stadium for the longest time. Suns played at the Coliseum, where the Fairground is, for the longest time. Like, eventually these deals do get worked out. This is what I'm hoping for, because I don't want them to move. I think Chase is in a perfect spot, because look at other teams like the Braves. They got a new stadium, but they took it out of downtown Atlanta and they put it in some suburb. Like, I don't know what the suburb is called, but it's really far out, and it's a little bit difficult for a lot of people to get to just because it's tiny. It's like moving it to, I don't know, Chandler or Gilbert. Like, just
I wouldn't hate that because I live on the east side.
Yeah, so maybe for me, I would go to maybe one game a season if they moved it to Gilbert, like, especially with how hard it would be to get there. So hopefully they keep it here, they keep it Chase. But like Brandon said, it's a lot of politician talk, just saying a lot without actually saying anything. Because there's a reason why these guys are in politics, because they know how to spin a yarn.
Yeah, unfortunately. I just hope it. I really don't want. I'm trying to not be super doom and gloom, pessimistic. Oh, they are definitely leaving. I'm gonna hold out till the last moment. So hopefully, I just want to see some sort of progress, something something that both sides are working together. My biggest fear is that there's going to be one side that's completely shut off and not wanting to work on this at all, whether that's the team or the city.
Which it seems like after what we saw from the Coyotes, I wouldn't be surprised if it's just a city. And then now that the team seems to officially and fully be out of the economic situation that the previous ownership left them into, with the deferrals that they had for the 01 team that obviously brought the championship here. But I do like Jeff's comment here saying that Kendrick has held up his end of the bargain. He's updated the lights, sound system, and video boards, and raised team payroll to record levels, which might even break last year's franchise record. last year's 2024 franchise record in 2025, whether by a few million or if they do sign a guy to be in the back end of the bullpen, which we'll kind of touch on in a second. They're definitely going to see that again. So it's time for the county to do something, and I fully agree. It's maybe in the last like 2-3 years, maybe 5 years ago, he was a little stubborn because he was trying to watch the pocketbooks a little bit more, trying to make sure they budget everything properly to keep the team on the track that they wanted. But hopefully now, especially if they can make the playoffs again and continue that extra like cash flow, maybe it'll keep the city in that mindset of, what, we do want to, we'll buy it, we'll kind of meet you halfway instead of having you like meet us 80-20, we'll go 50-50. Let's just figure something out, because again, we're already traumatized too much as Arizona sports fans, whether it be from our teams in the playoffs, or just the teams leaving and all that. We just don't need it again.
Yeah, I mean,
But
something that should give you a little bit of hope is the fact that we have 3 stars who are signed well beyond 2027 as well.
Yep.
And I don't think they would do that if they didn't feel confident. So, Corbin, Cattell, and other Corbin, we have 3 guys who are making a lot of money, and I don't think they would be paying that much money if they weren't, at least more sure of their future here.
yeah, that's another great point. But as I kind of mentioned earlier, there was, potential for the Diamondbacks to increase their, which Denk, I like the Black Eyed Peas reference. What a throwback. The D-backs obviously do have a chance to not only just like tie and pass last year's franchise record in payroll, they do have a chance to break it considerably, whether it be a free agent or a trade. And there was a little bit of, some updated news regarding that aspect, where the Arizona Diamondbacks Stats and Info had a tweet out from Gambo mentioning that there's a 50-50 chance the Diamondbacks closer in 2025 comes via free agency or trade, meaning that rules out left-handed pitcher AJ Puck or right-handed pitcher Justin Martinez in that role, at least to start the season. And then that did bring up one of the viewer questions that we got in our Discord earlier from the Rickety Bridge. Shout out Rickety, appreciate you. He asked, what are some free agent trade targets are realistic, or what are some free agents / trade targets are realistic for the D-backs, or do you think they are done making moves? So it is nice to see, obviously, with Gambo basically confirming that the D-backs are still active in the market. There were, obviously, we've talked about it a bunch, the main names like Helsley, Tanner Scott, Jeff Hoffman, maybe even Kirby Yates. There was another one that I've heard potential, like, some ideas that other podcasts, other people have like mentioned before, and that is Andres Munoz. And just looking at, some of the stats, I also wouldn't be opposed to him. He's another electric arm. He would be almost like a Helsley type. He throws really hard. He had a really solid, obviously a 2 WAR last year, 2.2 ERA. He had an under 1 whip, which I think is always important for a reliever, especially when you compare it to a guy like Tanner Scott, who's looking for his like 20 something million and has like a 1.3 whip, where he has a little bit more under control. And I think that could go a long way. And not only, maybe Justin Martinez can learn a little bit of something from him, or just in general, he would just, go a long way of helping lock down the bullpen. But to kind of touch on the tweet from Gambo and the D-back Stats and Info, and then also Rickety's question, do you think that there's any trades that the D-backs like have fully lined up, whether it's the, aforementioned bullpen arms, or is there another right-handed DH bat? Obviously, with us, hearing some potential rumors that the Pirates are trying to steal Randall Grichuk away from us, which it's not really a steal. Gambo borderline confirmed we're not bringing him back. But is there any other names, maybe out there on the free agent market or trade market that you guys, had in mind?
So I guess for a reliever, I mean, I kind of wasn't too into him, but even Kirby Yates, I mean, he did have a great year last year, but I brought up the fact that he just doesn't throw very hard. He gets a lot of swings and miss still, anyways. So with him, and I mean, that whip is just ridiculous. So I think with someone like Kirby Yates, if they bring him in, we shouldn't use him as a closer, except in certain situations. Maybe have J Mart, maybe have a closer by committee to start off the season. Then as the season progresses, start to figure out, okay, so this is your role, this is your role. But I do think we need one more bullpen arm. And I think guys like Tanner Scott, they're just going to be too expensive. I believe he's looking for $20 million. That's just out of the price range for the D-backs. And most of the league in general. Like I don't think they're going to give him Josh Hader money. Like as great as he's been, you think he's what 31 or so. I think he might be on the wrong side of 30. So that would be my pick, but because every team is going to be asking, I think, for the moon from the D-backs if they want to do any trade for a DH or for a reliever, unfortunately. So you might have to go and get somebody out of the free agency pool and maybe overpay slightly. But I do think this team is a great DH. And by great DH, I mean a guy like Jock, like Pete Alonso's still out there, by the way. Vlad Jr. just got damn near 30 million. Blue Jays, if you guys want to cut payroll, kind of send him our way if you want. We'll give you a couple of really good prospects.
See, Alonso's projected are looking for a $200 million deal, close to what Prince Fielder got. And like, I'm sorry, what are you smoking, buddy? Like, what is going on over there? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I know there's a lot of these guys who are asking for a lot of money, but I think for even like a Pete Alonso, I mean, he had a slight down year last year. Who knows? He could come to the D-backs. D-backs can pay him 20 million one season, prove it. And if he goes off the season, bats 250, hits another 40 bombs, he can get himself another 3-year contract for 100 million or 90 million or something like that. So there are some guys in free agency. I mean, there's a lot of guys still out there. Like there was some graphic that showed everyone was still. Max Scherzer is still out there. Justin Verlander barely signed. Like there's still a lot of really good guys out there that think the D-backs and anybody else can get maybe for a bargain. Just get them before spring training because there's not a lot of time left. We have around 40 days, if not maybe less than 40 days until pitchers and catchers report. So if it's a pitcher, make sure he's in spring training or he's there when pitchers and catchers report, because if not, there's going to be a lot of fans being angry that, oh, well, this guy's a 4 ERA now. I'm like, yeah, because he has no spring training.
Yeah, say two of the names that you brought up that, or at least two names, one that you brought up, one that brought up by Kyle. You brought up Yates, obviously saying that shouldn't use him for the back end of the bullpen. And then even Kyle's bringing up saying that he's big on Hoffman. And I agree with both you guys. I think Yates would be good for the middle of the bullpen. I think Hoffman would be a solid addition. I just don't know if going off of the tweet saying that they're looking for a like full-on closer, like somebody to step into that ninth inning role. To me, that just screams Helsley, Munoz, and then maybe if Tanner Scott's market does dip a little bit, maybe they can convince him to come here, a guy like him. And then even another name brought up in the chat here from Jeff Irving saying that David Bednar is interesting for me. Terrible year last year, but had multiple injuries, including a strained lat like Erod. He was arguably a top 3 closer the previous 3 seasons, and he's only 30. So maybe they even shock us. That was definitely a name that I didn't have on my radar necessarily, so I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to that. Because again, like Jeff made a good point, he was really solid for those 3 years. Even in 2023, there was talks about the D-backs potentially trading a guy like Brandon Pfaadt and somebody else to get a David Bednar because we were looking for, a closer. So looking back on it, thank goodness we didn't do that, because my goodness, I don't know where we would have gone in 2023 without Pfaadt in the rotation. But there are some interesting names still out there. But Brandon, I was kind of curious, same question to you. Are there some names that, we mentioned that you're on the same train with that you want to go and get, or is there somebody kind of like a David Bednar that we haven't really necessarily thought about that you're kind of looking at his numbers, you're kind of looking at the potential, and you're like, I could be talked into this?
So if they made an agreement today to avoid arbitration, are they still able to be traded? Because David Bednar signed today for 5.9. So
as long as there's no trade or not a no trade, I think you could still
Okay.
trade a guy.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, based on his age, it would be it'd be like a 1-2 year thing. I just don't see why if the Pirates do that, that just shows their fan base, yeah, we're punting on this season. Like the one good reliever that we have. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with Ryan Helsley, which I will always be, that's my number one choice. Until literally if he signs some sort of new deal or he gets traded somewhere else. Like I don't care what the reports say that the Cardinals say that they're not looking to trade him, or Cardinals are looking to add another back end of the bullpen arm. I'm still holding out hope, because if they can get Ryan Helsley, that is going to make that back end of the bullpen truly, truly dominant. Like, just looking at these numbers, he had a 3 WAR last year, 49 saves, just over 2 ERA. Like, that's really impressive to me. Now, I know Gabe's not big on Kirby Yates. I don't think it's a bad idea. I like the experience that he gives as the closer. And I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, that's going to be Paul Sewald 2.0." I don't think so. I think his command is a lot better than Paul Sewald. And he's not living on that like high 80s, low 90s fastball. This is not happening, Brett. Just give, like, I know you want Tanner Scott. I really do.
Not for the 20 million. Once I saw that price, I was off the Tanner Scott, but when I saw 20 million,
like, that's not. There's only one team that can afford that. There's only one team, and we know exactly who that is. That's the LA Dodgers. Like, no one's going to give him that. What? Like, he is not.
Mets or Yankees
that.
Maybe, but Dodgers most likely.
I wouldn't even consider him to bring that to under 15. You want to bring that to like 12 or 13? Okay. Maybe I'm willing to kick the tires on that. And also, like, Munoz, I would love. He's a flamethrower, a lot like Helsey. So that one I wouldn't be opposed to. I just don't see, like, why would Seattle do that? Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. But
Seattle, they got to say that 54%, baby.
My freaking Mike Hazen has a great trade relationship with Seattle. So yeah, like Chan says here, that's not going anywhere. Like, he is their face. He's not anymore because that's Paul Skeets. But
he's still like the veteran in the clubhouse.
Correct.
I get what he's saying.
So, Kyle, no, he's Mark Melanson 2.0. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people say, like, they bring in Kirby Yates, it's gonna be Mark Melanson 2.0. But I'm like, what if he's not? What if he's the opposite? What if he's actually really good? Because I don't hate the. To me, it's based on what it's gonna cost. I wouldn't mind them doing Kirby Yates as the closer for like the first 6 weeks. And then, like, you know what? Let's just throw in J Mart there. Because we all know J Mart is the long-term answer for closer. I just think that they're not ready to throw him into that fire yet. And also Jeff Hoffman. Jeff Hoffman, to me, doesn't match with what Gambo tweet said, that they're looking to get their closer for this season. Jeff Hoffman is not a closer. He's another high leverage arm. So that would be, like, I wouldn't hate the idea of going after getting Jeff Hoffman, but it doesn't really match with what Gambo's saying. Like, if they do Jeff Hoffman, then we need to go after someone else.
Yeah, I think something that complicates this is just the fact that we have guys returning, Drake Jameson for one, and then what's his name, DraftKings guy?
Sal Frank.
Frank.
Yeah.
So we have a couple guys coming back. So I don't know. Like, who knows? Maybe they just want to see what these guys are doing, what they're pumping. Like, if Dre comes back, like I said, usually when you get Tommy John, you get, a couple miles an hour off your fastball. So if he comes in and he's pumping 98, you can just slot him into that 7th spot and you just move either Puck or J-Mart up a notch. And then, you just, like you're talking about the first 6 weeks, and same with Kirby Yates. Like, it depends on the cost. Like, if they're paying him $5 million, it makes it a lot easier to swallow if you need to let him go. Like, you don't want to. I think that's kind of the unfortunate part about relievers, is just that if you're paying him $15 million a year and they're terrible, you can't really get rid of them like as much as you would want to. You kind of just keep testing him out there and throwing him out there, see what sticks. And this team, can't afford to spend $20 million on a guy who might not work out.
Yeah, it's like Brandon said, if you can get him under, like, probably wouldn't go under 20, but even like 15, any like 5 million saved is 5 million earned, would definitely be nice. But I think the Scott ship has sailed. But yeah, definitely going to be looking at more of like a back end guy. The D-backs, and while that is a move that obviously like hasn't been made yet, we'll have to look for it. There were a few moves that the D-backs did make that weren't like necessarily super crazy, but were somewhat notable. The D-backs are still, trying to fix and replace Kevin Newman, the hole that he's leaving behind as the middle infield kind of backup guy. They did trade right-hand or minor league right-hander Matthew Linsky to the Astros for Gray Kessinger. He's, not really too much. I think even Gabe said he's basically a minor leaguer, somebody that they're probably going to give a shot to, come into spring training, compete for that backup spot. Maybe if he does have a solid spring, he wins it. It might be hard, especially if Blaze Alexander can get his defense figured out. He'll probably be a tough guy to beat out for it, but that was one move they made. And then there was another one that not necessarily a trade, but a signing, international signing that basically takes them fully out of the race for Roki Sasaki because it'll dip into the money they had for them. But the D-backs have a report that they will sign Elian De La Cruz. I believe that is Ellie De La Cruz's brother, if I'm not mistaken. He's a 17-year-old outfielder. Once the international free agent market opens on January 15th, they'll go after him. I believe the deal was around like 1.5 to 2 I think it was 2.5, 2.8 or something like that. It was a pretty hefty chunk again of their like 7-something million of international signing bonus. So just looking at some of the clips I saw of him, it was pretty interesting. I definitely it's a raw talent. It's going to take a few years. It's not like maybe he'll be a Juan Soto where he plays 50 games in the minors and is already up here because he's just destroying every single level he's playing at. Or it could be a guy where maybe it takes him 3-4 years, but either way, pretty solid signing out of the international free agent market, and seems like their new facilities down in the Dominican Republic are starting to hopefully sway some more guys to become a Diamondback and sign with us a little bit earlier than going the route of like the Dodgers or maybe even like the Yankees, some of those other teams. But I'm kind of curious if you guys had any thoughts on the two moves, whether it was trading for Gray Kessinger or it was signing the brother of Ellie De La Cruz.
I guess Kessinger, honestly, I don't care. It doesn't move the needle for me at all. Like, he wasn't very good in the minors, so I don't know. Supposedly, it's like a depth piece, but I'm like, what are you just gonna do with Jordan Lawler? That's kind of where I'm worried about. So I'm like, why are you signing these like shortstops, like second baseman, if we have Jordan Lawler and Tommy Troy there? Like, what's going on? With De La Cruz, if he's Ellie's brother, is his like nickname also Ellie, like Elian? That they call him Ellie. So do we have a Ellie De La Cruz at home as well? Like, I don't know. It's kind of random.
Yeah, I didn't see the full confirmation, again, whether that was his brother. I know the internet makes a lot of jokes, but I did see a lot more than I would see. I assumed were jokes where people are saying that this was his brother. But either way, if we can get a guy that's like Ellie, I believe he's more of like a power guy, not as like power speed like Ellie is. He's not a switch hitter, obviously, but still, if he could turn into another solid ball player, I'd be very happy about it. But it is funny that the one outfielder they get is not a 5'9" high schooler. He's basically a high schooler, but it's not one that they drafted this time. But Brandon, kind of same question to you. I know like Jeff brought up in the chat here saying that Kessinger was actually a 2nd-round pick in 2019 and the Astros 15th prospect in 2020. So definitely did have some prospect pedigree, just hasn't fully blossomed into what I imagine the Astros wanted. But did you have any, kind of thoughts on the D-backs move for him, and then along with their rumored signing for De La Cruz?
Like Gabe said, this is a depth move. I think this is more just someone to have there in camp. No one gave Kevin Newman a chance last year in spring. He played very well in spring. He made the roster, basically saved us at shortstop for when Jerry was out. So this could be that, but also could not be. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, yes, if you look at his stats when he was Houston, just garbage, just straight atrocious. Change of scenery, new team, new coaches. You really don't know. So, yeah, I'm not sure that Elian is his brother. I think it's people just making a joke. There's nothing.
I got by the internet once again. Damn you, internet.
I'm like, yeah, it's the same last name, but there's nothing that I see that says he's this, like, he's like Brett said, we finally got an outfielder that's not a 5'11" or 5'9" lefty that can't throw. Uh, Alien's a pretty big kid. He's
He's like 6'4", I think.
no, he's not quite that tall.
Oh,
Six
I know he's at
one,
least 6 foot. Okay.
6'1", 180. Um,
Maybe he's only 17. He probably has a few more inches,
right,
probably like 6'3" or 6'4".
Like he could absolutely grow into that body. And his major tool is power. So that would be like great to see. William, he's Ellie after taking the substance.
It's okay. There's only one guy doing that, and that's for the ringworm.
So, yeah, but no, like Brett said, like this is the first step of the school there that the D-backs have in the DR. So I'm very curious to see how this like do we see a lot of these in the next few years? Do we see a lot of these notable teenagers end up signing with this team, and then say in 3 or 4 years, all of a sudden we have a top 10 farm system in Major League Baseball with all the young good players we have, like Cattell, Corbin's going to be here for a very long time, everybody. So it's probably the smartest thing Mike Hazen ever did was signing that deal.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna look back on that deal in a few years.
He's way underpaid already.
Oh yeah, like it's potential to border on the same discussion that the Ronald Acuna Jr. contract borders on, where people in like 4 or 5 years are gonna look at his agent and be like, "Are you stupid? Are you stupid pills? Why would you do this?" But again, sometimes it's not about just like the player. Sometimes the player really likes the organization for giving them a chance. I know like Acuna's situation and Corbin are very different. I believe Cunha was an international free agent, kind of like Elian. I know Corbin was an actual draft. So it is a little bit different, but it is one of those where, hey, sometimes the players just like the organization, they like the team, and they, team-friendly deals still do exist in baseball. Like not everybody's a Juan Soto where they're like, hey man, I'm going to the highest bidder. Whoever wants to give me money, they're going to give me that money. So it is going to be one of those deals we look back on a few years. But I did at least want to, again, bring up another comment. I like Kyle's here though, saying he'll grow into a 6'9" monster that hits balls 600 feet. There's no outcome written in stone even. I like that. If he could add an extra like 7-8 inches to the frame and just hit absolute like taters, be like Reggie Stalker in MLB The Show or MLB MVP baseball back in the day, I'd be very much okay with that. But
did you guys grow up after that? Like when you guys were 17, did you guys grow at all?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've been 6'1", 6'1" since I was like 16.
I grew this way.
I like that. Yeah, so I definitely gained some pounds, but I was like 6'1", 6'1".
So I graduated when I was 17, and I was 5'5". I think I'm 5'8" now. So I did grow a little bit after that, which sucked because I'm like, damn, I couldn't hit all those girls back then because I was too tiny. Now, like, where did those years go?
Our short king.
I haven't peaked yet, though.
You still got more to go. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I haven't even begun to peak. Yeah.
We're going to do what we normally do for all of our shows here, and we're going to end off with a little bit of viewer questions. Again, if you guys have some in the YouTube chat, get them in now. We'll try to rapid fire because we do have a few already cooked up from our Discord members, which, again, by the way, I know a lot of you guys in here listening are. If you guys haven't joined the Discord yet, one, it's free. You don't got to pay $75 a year to get access to. Two, there's a lot of great people in there already. A lot of writers. Jeff is in there again. He's a writer on Snake Pit. He has a lot of great conversations. And as we're getting close to the season, like I've already seen the difference from what it was like 4 months ago when we made it to now. It's definitely very active in there. So come join the community in there. Again, it's free. Come holler at us. It is an easy way to kind of stay connected with us outside of the stream because we do have a channel in there for viewer questions, and that's where these ones that we're going to start with. So the first one that we had on here, well, I guess the first one we had earlier was from Rickety. So again, Rickety, appreciate you for that one. The first one was from our other Dodgers fan in the Discord, who's not on the Cruz level of trolling, but he does like to throw some fun jabs, some fun comments here and there. But Shug was asking in the Discord, saying, with the Dodgers stacking their roster, which NL West team will be in second this year? I personally think it's, I'm still confident in the D-backs. I know the Padres haven't made all their moves, but they still got a pretty tough roster. So they're probably going to be what a lot of people's picks are. And then depending on what the Giants do, I know a lot of people were saying that, especially with the addition of Adames and now with Justin Verlander, who's definitely not the Justin Verlander, the Tigers that I saw all those highlights on Twitter, which I know were a joke, obviously. But what are your guys' thoughts? Who do you think is going to be? I mean, obviously, there's a chance that maybe the Dodgers have some bad luck. Maybe some team has a better record than them and finishes first. But who do you see being the second place team in the NL West this year?
So I think it's probably going to be the D-backs just because of that rotation. The Padres can't really compete with that because, unless if I'm wrong, they don't have Joe Musgrove anymore, do they?
I think he was injured in the playoffs.
No, he's getting Tommy John.
Tommy John, yeah. So he was a frontline starter. So right now they just have Michael King, right?
Darvish, yep.
He's nasty,
Darvish, and we're great, but they're not, they're not Zac Gallen, they're not Corbin Burns, they're not Merrill Kelly, they're not Erod. And I was talking to this with my brother earlier today. Like,
Cease,
don't see, do they?
Yes,
do, but they're talking about potentially trading him.
Yeah, so I think a lot went wrong for this team last year. With the amount of injuries, they had about like 14 different pitchers make five or more starts last year, which is crazy. You don't want that to happen. That's just means everyone, died. So I would hope for next year, we have a steady rotation. Also, Corbin started off very bad. Gino started off very bad. Perdomo was injured. Alec was injured. Paul Sewald was terrible. Like, everything that could go wrong for this team went wrong, and yet they won 89 games. And I think you can argue for the most part, this team has sort of stayed the same. They just need one more power bat, and they're about the same team they were last year. So if they won 89 games with half a roster, I can see them winning 95, even 100 games with, a newer and improved bullpen, better rotation. I mean, we talked about it before when they signed Corbin Burns. Like, he's a guy who can go out there and win, and pitch 180 innings. Yep. Nobody reached anywhere near that. I think Gallen was the only one who reached 150. So if we're able to get all these guys back and healthy, I do think we're a better team than the Padres. As great as the Padres are, they also have done nothing. They've only lost guys so far. Their elite reliever, Tanner Scott, is not with them right now. So as of right now, the way it stands, I think the D-backs still have a better team. And I don't care what that stupid MLB prospect ranking is. I think the D-backs should be a lot higher than 7. There should definitely be above the stupid Orioles, who have no rotation right now.
Yeah, the only moves the Padres, or the only, off-season things about the Padres that's happened is the drama going on with their ownership group that my buddy Kendall's bringing up in the YouTube chat saying, do you see the Padres ownership drama continuing the decline of their size of the payroll and aggressiveness to win now to slay the dragon up the freeway? And honestly, it depends on who's going to be running it. If it's the brothers and all that running the Padres, I could see them going the complete opposite and just fully shedding payroll and trying to treat it like a business. But if Peter Seidler, rest in peace, if his wife is the one that can end up getting control of the team, I could see them continuing to be a little bit more aggressive. Maybe they do try to, bring back a guy like Tanner Scott. Maybe they do try to trade whatever prospects they have left to trade for a pitcher, which would make them a little more formidable. But I kind of agree with you, Gabe. I think that the D-backs have, in my opinion, yes, very biased here, obviously, the best shot of being, that second team runner up in the NOS. But Brandon, same question to you. I know obviously there's 2 teams in this division that you're kind of rooting for, but out of all those 2, and then the other, the Rockies, we know are finishing last is the Rockies. But who do you see finishing second in the NOS in 2025?
If this drama thing with the Padres gets really, really bad, Padres are finishing last. Like, this supposedly, I don't know if you actually read the lawsuit. It's gonna get nasty. It's gonna get ugly. Like, it's like what happened with the Dodgers divorce back in the early 2000s, early 2010s, where basically Major League Baseball had to step in. Like it could potentially get that bad. I think the Padres finished fourth. All biases aside, like just looking at roster construction, like Diamondbacks just have a better roster than the Giants. Like, okay, they signed Justin Verlander. He's over 40 years old. Like, do you really like? We don't even know if he's going to make 10 starts. Like, yes, you signed
Pavin Smith laughs at that move.
Like, yes, you signed Willie Adames, but what else have you really done? Like, so
I
far,
forgot a guy, Jurickson Profar, like their other most consistent hitter. They don't have Jurickson anymore.
Nope,
And
he's a free
also,
agent.
The sophomore slump is real, as we saw with Corbin. So there's a chance that Jackson Merrill could come down to earth a bit.
Like, yeah, I mean, I want to be funny and say second place is going to be the Dodgers because D-backs are going to be first, but I don't actually believe that. I just do it to get back at Cruz. Not necessarily at Shug because he doesn't troll and he's not as annoying as Cruz. Like, y'all, I don't show you half the text that I have with him. It's really hard not to just, when I see him at work, just to punch him square in the face. And I'm like, you are doing your job. You are
he knows
me.
He's inside of our walls.
Dude, that man lives rent free in my head. Because we got into a whole thing about Will Smith and Gabby today. Because he brought up, oh, your catcher didn't finish, wasn't a top 3 catcher. And I said, Gabby's better than Will Smith. And I was like, I said what I said.
Will Smith's a damn good hitter. Will Smith's a damn good hitter. I think he has a little bit of an edge on Gabby at that right now.
But I'm just saying Gabby is a better all-around player. Gabby will shut down teams with the run game.
Yeah, nobody runs a train on Gabby the way they do to Will Smith.
That's at least very true because we've seen, especially the D-backs, on some of the games they played where, like, I think it might have been more 2023, but like McCarthy and Corbin, I think there was like 8 stolen bases in one game off of him, something like that. But I mean, what he lacks behind the plate for, the catching and throwing out guys, he makes up for at the plate because he's pretty damn good in the box there.
Yeah, and last season when he finally realized, stop swinging for the fences, stop trying to pull everything, and go Gabby Lane. Go right there between first. Once he started doing that, his average raised like drastic. Like it went like it. He almost got to 280 at one point. I'm like, okay, so Gabby, you realize what you're good. Like you are so good going the other way. Like I don't mind you pulling it if the ball's inside. Yeah, go ahead, but stop trying to pull everything, Gabby. That's not who. Gabby, you are not a home run hitter. You are a gap hitter. Like that's where Gabby is. And like as long as Gabby can hit 280 and what he does for this pitching staff and stopping the run game. But I think like San Diego hasn't done anything. All they've done is sign a couple of minor league free agents. Like they have now God, how do you do this?
He's just lurking.
He's just lurking. I'm honestly, I'm going to be very curious to see what he does with Corbin Burnes because Corbin Burnes has allowed like the most stolen bases and is just like the slowest to the plate. So I'm going to be very, very curious how he plays with Gabby because Gabby is still like playing basically part time because he was injured this season. He still had something like 18 outs above average or something crazy like that. So having him and Corbin Burnes, who knows, that ERA might even drop because of that.
Yes, I think if the D-backs can obviously stay healthy, the debate on Gabby Moreno and Will Smith will be one that we'll probably have for years because obviously Will Smith is going nowhere. He's there for like another 10 years, some extension they just signed him to. No. So it'll be a fun battle to, the battle within the division amongst, some of the players to see, who's better. I think in 5 years' time, it'll definitely be one of those where we can look back on it and be like, maybe there's a case to show that Gabby's a better hitter, but with the track record that Will Smith has had, it's gonna be tough to overcome. But the second question that we had here, obviously another one from the Discord, was from our boy Kyle Dannon. He was asking who is everyone on the show's favorite Diamondback of all time. For me, it's easy. I've mentioned it before. I'll mention it till the day I die. He's the reason why my Twitter handle has 44 in it. He's the reason why, like, anything I can make, my work username is 44. Anything I can, it's got 44 in it, and that's because of Paul Goldschmidt. I was mostly a first baseman in middle school, high school when he was in his prime here playing. He was obviously I couldn't fully idolize it or fully replicate what he did as a player because again I don't have that same kind of skill. But I would always
You mean
imitate his
height?
batting stance. I mean, yeah, that too. I would always also dude. Paul Goldschmidt's a pretty beefy dude. He's pretty muscular. Those forearms are huge. But he was a dude that I would always imitate his batting stance. I would always, if I could get the jersey number 44, I was picking 44. He was easily I know Gonzo when I was growing up, he was my favorite, but Goldschmidt and what he did, he quickly overtook Gonzo for me personally, my favorite Diamondback of all time. And I will always let my bias overtake any, rational thoughts I have about anything like that with him.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's kind of not weird, but it's weird, I guess, comparatively to everyone else. But Zac Greinke, I just think he was just such an amazing player while he was here, and just like his antics, his interviews, and everything. I just think he made him completely unique to whatever other guys come before him. Because I love Gonzo as a kid. I love Council. Like this team had some dogs in there, like Johnson, Schilling. Like we had a lot of really great guys come through, and throughout the seasons, I would have different guys that I would like. I liked Cintron for a long time, Barra, even Burns for like that, half season that he was good. Like there's a lot of guys I think that I really, really like, but I think for me, it's Zac Greinke. As of right now, honestly, it might be Alec. I just like him as a person. I just think I like his whole vibe. So as of right now, I think my favorite D-backs is Alec, but all time I think it would be Greinke.
Yeah, so even as a Dodger, I couldn't hate Greinke because like I'm a fan of pitching. I love pitching. I'm like Jeff, where it's like that's just in my blood. I will always love the art of pitching and all that. And just yes, it sucked what he did when he was a Dodger, but my goodness, was he so damn good in that 2015 season. If you guys don't remember it or haven't brushed up on it in a while, go look it up. Go watch it because it's a magic art. The amount of times where Kershaw and Greinke back to back in a series, I just be like, oh, cool. That's just 2 straight nights of me just putting myself through pain in front of the TV because I'm a masochist and I love watching my baseball team just get absolutely dominated by them. But yeah, Greinke's a good pull.
That's the unfortunate part for me. I'm like literally my favorite all-time baseball player of all time is Shohei Ohtani. So that hurt me so much to watch him go to the Dodgers because I'm like, I hate you, but I can't hate you. It's like a love-hate relationship, and I don't know. I wish him. I don't know. I can't even say anything else, I guess.
My buddy Kendall has a nice one. I like this honorable mention, Micah Owings. Yeah, Micah Owings, the back when pitchers could hit, he was one of the. I think he even pinch hit as a pitcher or pinch hit as a hitter a few times because he was just that good in the box. Yeah, he was. That's a good pull, Kendall. But Brandon, same to you. What's your favorite Diamondback of all time?
It's without a doubt the big unit, Randy Johnson. That is without a doubt the best D-backs contract ever, best value you could ever see. That might be one of the best contracts ever in Major League Baseball history. What he did in those 4 years on that deal is just simply dominant. And this team, I don't think they make the World Series in 2001, and they don't win without Randy Johnson. There's a reason he was one of the recipients in the very first class of the D-backs Hall of Fame. There's a reason it was Randy Johnson. Like, yes, I get Luis Gonzalez actually won that game, but Randy Johnson pitching in Game 7 kept them in it.
Randy Johnson walked out of the bullpen so Madison Bumgarner could run in his 2014, appearance when he just absolutely carried them. Like he pitched on like 2-3 days short rest. Like his arm, yeah. It also it's funny looking back on it. I think it was a popular clip from forgetting the player. He's on one of the baseball like ESPN broadcasts. Does a lot of the League World Series, but he mentioned that Randy Johnson tipped every single one of his pitches, like just because of the way he like kept his arms in. Like he was always giving away exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Like you can know he's throwing a fastball,
fastball.
and you're not touching that.
And then his slider was just slider was nasty.
Thank goodness whoever it was in his minor league career that was like, hey, I think it was Nolan Ryan he talked to, where he was like, hey, here's what you do to get your control under.
That was when he was in Houston.
Yeah, that's right.
So, man. Yeah.
Thank you, baseball gods.
Is without a doubt Randy Johnson is my favorite. Current, though, is freaking Ginkel. I love just his whole swagger when he plays.
Yeah, so like, I got to get a Ginkel jersey soon. That's one. I have a signed one, but I need to get another one. So can't go wrong with it, especially I know him, Corbin. You're gonna see a lot of those jerseys around the Valley for a while. Maybe I'll get Slade a Ginkel jersey when he's for one of his first ones and be like, here you go. But the next question that we had here, another one from our Discord, obviously. After we get through the Discord ones, I'll go through some of the ones we got in the YouTube chat. But this one's from our boy Cam. He's asking, who do you think will be our starting rotation on opening day? I know we kind of mentioned this a little bit in the Corbin Burns stream when we talked about, the plethora of guys that we have and their options and all that. Me personally, I still think it being Zac Gallen's probably going to get the ball just because he's still the A1 on the team, even though Burns might be a little bit better, but because he's been here, the pedigree, all that, he'll probably get the ball. Burns second, Merrill Kelly next, Eduardo Rodriguez 4, and then I guess if we don't trade him, Jordan Montgomery, and then if we do trade him, then my guess would be Brandon Pfaadt. But maybe they, kind of do what Gabe said, go with the 6-man rotation. But we'll have to see because they really don't like doing a 6-man.
Yeah, I basically have the same thing. I think it's just going to depend on Ryan Nelson, Brandon Pfaadt, whoever looks better coming into spring. If anybody gets a couple ticks on their velocity or just looks a little bit better, I think either one, but it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be Burns, Gallen, Kelly, Erod, and then Montgomery. And I do think they should still keep Montgomery, at least for the time being, just to see if he goes back to what he was, in his career. But in terms of opening day, I do think they'll still give it to Gallen because that's what they did with Patrick Corbin in 2018. So Greinke could have taken it, but they gave it to Corbin, kind of like a little bit of a nod to him just because this is last year here. And they screwed him over in the 2017 playoffs. And I think it was just kind of a, bit of a makeup thing for him. So I think with Gallen just, being the face of the D-backs for a while, I think they would give it to him, but it would be sweet to see Justin Steele versus Corbin Burns on the first day. It's gonna feed families.
It would feed families for ages. But Brandon, same to you. What is your ideal? Maybe not ideal, but what do you see being the opening day rotation come March?
I understand that they signed Corbin Burns this massive deal, 6 years, $210 million. I get it. This is Zac Gallen's team, though. So Zac Gallen will be the opening day starter, without a doubt. So make sure you're there March 27th. I know I'll be there. I know Brett's going to be there. Gabe will most likely be there. So we'll definitely have to. It's going to be very fun. But yeah, then it's going to go Burns, Kelly, and I go back and forth with 4 and 5. Like, is it going to be Erod just because he looks better than Jordan Montgomery did last year in that 4 spot, and then maybe Pfaadt, or do they go Jordan Montgomery in the 4? And I think to me, it depends on how these guys do in spring training. Like, if Jordan Montgomery looks awful in spring or Erod looks bad in spring, maybe they have them miss that first go-through in the rotation. Because keep in mind, the first month of the season, you get a 28-man roster, not a 26. So they could keep an extra starting pitcher. So I don't know if they'll do a 6-man rotation, but maybe they'll have someone skip a start there those first couple of weeks. But my dream scenario, though, would probably be Gallen, Burns, Kelly, Erod, and Fott, because Fott kept us in the running for the playoffs. Like if Fott does not basically make every start last year, we don't even have a chance at the, like I get we didn't make it, but without Fott, I think our season would have been over like 2 or 3 weeks prior to the end of the year.
It'd be tough to keep Nelson out of the rotation, especially if his quote death ball. Which again, go check out Jeff's article. It was a great read. I had learned a lot. It was very informative, and I'm 10 out of 10. But it'll be tough to keep him out of there. But there's only so many spots in rotation. He does have options. He could be the odd man out, but we'll have to wait to see. Quick shout out, V, watching from work or listening from work. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. Shout out to you. But the last question that we had from our Discord before we get into some of the YouTube questions we had here was from Marte Believer. He is asking, should we worry about Burns being another Scherzer? And I was a little curious on what that meant, just because like I don't know if they meant more of like a mad bum, because I know like Scherzer was really, I mean, I know we traded him away really early and he ended up blossoming, and we traded him
I
away
think
just
it's more
because...
of the contract he signed with the Mets. And
Oh,
it
that
didn't
could
really
be.
like they traded him like what, not even the next season. But if you look at age, like Scherzer was a lot older than
Yeah,
Corbin
he was
Burns.
like 37. Corbin Burns
Yeah.
is barely 30. So in this case, I don't think it will be. I don't see why it would be. I mean, he's younger than Zach Greinke was when they signed the contract with him too. So I think this has the potential to be one of like, we talk about Greinke having top 5 and Gallen being top 5. I think Corbin Burns is easily going to be top 3 if he lasts the rest of the contract.
Yes, I think that'll be the main key, is as long as he stays here, which that'll be the thing that sucks is, if he's opting out and, trying to hit the free agent market again at 32, that means he probably had some pretty good seasons here with us and we hopefully had some good success. But if he does stay all 6 years, I'm on Gabe's side. I do think that he has a chance to really rise up there, put his name, maybe not like obviously D-backs Hall of Fame worthy, depends on what he does. It's hard to, do that in such a short time. But I do think that we're going to be talking about this deal in the end in more of a positive light than necessarily like a light that, like, maybe the Mets kind of look at when it comes to the contracts that they gave to Verlander and Scherzer. And I think that it'll be a better deal in the long run for us. But moving on to some of the YouTube questions we had here. One of them, not really a question, but at least I wanted to highlight it here. Jeff was saying that he's got a hot take. Jordan Lawler breaks out and pulls a Corbin Carroll 2023 and the D-backs win the West. Alec hits 20 bombs. Burns wins Cy Young. Monty regains 2023 status. And sign me up for every single one of those. I will just
I'll take like 2 of those. Are you kidding me? I'll take at least 2.
Inject it all into my blood.
I don't even think this is a hot take. This is honestly what I was expecting. Like, this is literally what I thought the season was going to be last year, but then everybody got hurt. But adding Corbin Burns to that, I think all of those are probably correct. I think Alec will be closer to 15 home runs this season, but 20 bombs. I mean, like I said, I've compared Alec to Chris Young, and Chris Young had that sort of power, and I think they're very similar players, and I think, again, they're all very, very young. Alec Thomas, I believe, barely turned 24 or is going to be 25. Like, there's still some progress to be made for these guys.
Yeah, so there was a great article done by Jack Summers over on Sports Illustrated where he kind of did a comparison on the 2 outfielders that have been drawing some trade interest in Jake McCarthy and Alec Thomas, which, again, another great article. Go check that out if you guys haven't. Jack's a great writer. But I do like some of the things he brought up where I think he was saying that like Alec has a higher ceiling, but maybe a lower floor, where Jake has a higher floor, but not as high of a ceiling. And I think that's a great way to put it. Obviously, I know Alex a little bit younger, but one of the things that stuck out to me was how hard he hits the ball. I think Alec hits the ball at like a hard hit rate in the 40s, potentially 50s, where Jake is sitting in I think he was like the 30s, like 35, something like that. And I mean, we saw it last year. Obviously, like he had a lot of dink and doink hints. He had a lot of, kind of like slap singles up the middle, where Alex's big issue is rolling over into the second base hole and just chopping at the ball. which definitely want to see some improvements on that this year. I think if he can figure that out, that'd be huge because, I mean, even in that, I believe the game against the Cubs, Justin Steele, or maybe I think it was one of the Cubs pitchers that he had a bomb off of where he rocketed that thing. Like, he has the power, he has the potential, and I think that if he could just figure out the bat path and the the launch angle, I think he will definitely have a good shot of hitting 20 bombs. But well, again,
I don't
have to
even
make sure
need him to have a high average. Alec, you want to hit 230, 240? That is enough for me because of that freaking defense is just so dynamite. He will win a Gold Glove. I don't doubt it in my mind that he will win a Gold Glove
as long as he's healthy.
I just want it to be with this team. It would really suck if they decide like they get an offer they can't refuse, like Ryan Helsey, and they only have to really give up Alec and like a low-level prospect.
I would still rather have them give up Jake for him because so high on Jake. I don't want to give up on Alec too much because I do agree with Jack. I think that his ceiling is a little bit higher, and if we can just tweak whatever they need to tweak, kind of figure it out, I think that would be a great player to kind of hold on to. But then the final question we had here in our YouTube chat, I know we've been kind of going on a little bit long here, so we'll get out of here soon. But the last one was from my buddy Kendall. He's asking what do you want to happen with Jordan Montgomery? I know we mentioned it before. We'll still at least kind of mention it again because I think this is one of the first times Kendall's in here. So again, Kendall, appreciate you. Appreciate the rest of you guys that hop on the live show and even listen to the podcast afterwards. But I think that after especially reading the article from Jeff on the death ball, I think that we should try to keep him, whether it's maybe start him out in the bullpen, or if we do go to a 6-man rotation, let him have one of those spots because he is a really effective pitcher. We mentioned it before. He is like, maybe not a Corbin Burns-esque where he's a Cy Young candidate putting up like a just above 2 ERA. But we've seen through his career, he is like a 3 to 3.5 ERA guy. He can be really effective. He made Yordan Alvarez his son in the 2023 postseason and just absolutely dominated him. So I think that there's some potential there, but I know that's definitely in the minority of D-backs fans when it comes to what they want to do with Jordan Montgomery. I know me and Gabe are definitely on the side of keep him. A lot of people, which understandably are on the side of ship him out of here, please. I don't care what it takes.
So I would rather keep him because I think he is 3.5 ERA guy. I think having a guy with a 3.5 ERA as a number 5 starter who can pitch 160 innings, I think he's going to be probably the best 5th starter in the league, and I think we should just write it out with him because, like I said, last year he had no spring training at all, and that really, really messes you up. So hopefully that is who he is, and like I said, I would rather keep him just in case he is that, because like I said, he has a track record of being that. This is his first truly bad year in his whole career, so I'd rather keep him.
Yeah, so even like V's comment saying that she'd be pleasantly surprised by him next season. But do I think that's going to happen? Doubtful. Which is it's fair. It's fair. I can't blame the doubt. And
for
Jeff,
me, with Montgomery, I'm going to have a very short leash with him. Like, I do not want to see, like, if he pitches all spring, like, I just need to see something that's going to give me hope for the season. Like, for me, he's got to have better command of his sinker and changeup. That's where I felt like he got destroyed, is he could not locate those pitches. I don't even think that we need, like, prime 2023 playoffs Jordan Montgomery. Like, if we can get him at, like, a 3.5, maybe 3.8 ERA, have him go 5-6 innings every start, like, I'm okay with that. I just, if he comes out and he looks in spring and he looks okay, then I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But if he doesn't have a good start the entire month, yeah, yeah. And I get what Jeff's saying. Like, we are very righty heavy. We are. Like, our top 3 guys are going to be righties with Gallen, Burns, and Kelly. So I'm probably be a lot more critical because I just don't think he's it. I think, yes, I get he missed spring training, but he should not have been trashed in August, because you also know who also missed spring training and was doing pretty well in July, August, and September? Blake Snell. So that to me is not an excuse for Jordan to pitch bad.
But he was also injured, so I mean, he's just kind of one thing compounded. I brought up in our group chat Saturday, I think, when I was looking at his baseball savant page. Like, he had very, very weird stats, and I think he kind of had a lot of bad luck. I mean, go watch. I would urge everybody to go watch his starts. There were a lot of times we had like a guy on first or second and was about to get out of the inning, got a ground ball, and either Blaze or whoever else just booted it, kept him in the game. There was a couple with McCarthy as well that he misplayed. There was a lot of errors. His ERA, expected ERA, was over a run lower than his actual ERA was, and that doesn't happen. Usually you're way higher. I just think he just kind of got bad luck. I mean, like I said, he wasn't great either, but it was just a very weird year for him. I mean, his chase rate was 91st percentile. That's crazy. Like, that there shows us something there. His barrel rate, 81% percentile, extension 70%, ground ball rate 50%. Like, everything in that side shows you like there's a lot there. And if he comes back next year, he's able to locate. I think that's the main issue. Just he wasn't able to locate. That changeup was just straight down the middle so many times. So he was able to play around the edges a lot more next year, and this defense can help him out a bit. I do think he's going to go back to being a 3.5, 3.7 ERA guy.
I hope. I really hope so.
I think Charles makes a great point in here in the chat, saying anything from Montgomery would be a plus. Last season proved you need a lot of pitching depth, as Gabe mentioned. Even more, some of our past pods with why the Dodgers did what they did, because of the amount of pitchers they had that were ready just to take the ball. Erod is almost guaranteed to be injured at some point, and Merrill too with this cramping issue. And I think that's another great point is, yes, the D-backs might have some guys in the minors that could eat up some innings, but we saw what happened with like Slade Ciccone, Gilbert Diaz, even Christian Mena. Is it the most reliable? Potentially not. Like they could have their nerves get to them, where at least like a veteran guy like Montgomery wouldn't have the nerves. I think you could definitely get something good out of him, but again, that's just whether it's in the D-backs cards or not. And then Jeff also had another point saying that he was also very out of shape. Easy fix. Kaplan is big on strength and conditioning. So I think if, like Gabe said, give him a full spring, let him, kind of fully, acclimate to the team, fully, have a normal offseason, which again, who knows? We haven't seen him since the season ended. Maybe he's been doing that. Maybe he's been on like a diet plan. Maybe he's already dropped, 10, 15, 20 pounds, is working on or pitching on a early program. So, it's definitely one of those where I think there's some positives that could come of it. But again, it's just whether that's in the D-backs cards or not, it's going to be tough. And I do agree, Kendall. Merrill is a dog, and their beefy starting pitching staff. It's a good problem to have. It's one of those where it's nice to know, like, it's a big change from 2023 where we got two guys. Imagine like the meme of like, the three-headed dragon where you got two that are, menacing, and the third one's over there just with googly eyes and his tongue out like, "Ugh." The D-backs were like that in 2023, except for it was five heads. Two of them were actually worth something. The other three were just absolutely in la la land. We could not really trust them for most of the season, but again, that's we'll come to find out probably closer to spring training. I would imagine maybe even before February comes around, maybe but like before pitchers and catchers report, maybe the starting pitcher market kind of heats up a little bit. I imagine after Roki makes his decision, maybe the D-backs get some more calls on Montgomery. Maybe they don't. Who knows? I feel like we'll definitely get some news on him in the next like 2-3 weeks, but you guys know that if there is any news regarding him, or maybe even the D-backs make another trade for some of the relievers we mentioned earlier, like Helsley, Hoffman, Munoz, or even if they do end up opening the wallet to give it to Tanner Scott, highly doubt. You guys know where to be. That is right here, D-backs Dispatch, with Brandon, Brett, and myself. Brandon, Gabe, and myself, Brett. We appreciate each and every single one of you guys for stopping by again. Again, make sure you guys go follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky. Bunch of banger memes throughout the season. Make sure you guys join our free Discord. hop in there with all the other, D-backs fans of the community that we have in there. And then again, check out all the articles over on azsnakebit.com. Especially as we get closer to the season, there's a lot of good content that ramps up. And even in the off season right now, there's still a lot of great content. So, make sure you go over there. But again, we appreciate each and every single one of you guys. We will see you on the next episode of D-backs Dispatch.
It's the D-backs Dispatch. Let's go. Yeah, brings Red Gate, Josh on the floor. West Coast vibes, catch us on the air. Home run dogs, diamond gems we share. Brandon was a stat, Caesar man was a plan. Red races down, tells it like it is, man. Gabs on fire, brings the heat every time. Josh on the mix, keep the beat so prime. I got the insights every week's a hit. Tune in, D-backs Dispatch, this is it. Now we rollin'. D-backs Dispatch, yeah. Talk to Brandon, Brandon Gabe, this is Big Kench. Josh on the mix, he make the beats. West Coast vibe, got the G fucking the band. The home Mac, the home Mac, the home Mac, home Mac. D-backs Dispatch, we're here to stay. Yeah, catch us every week, we bring a play-by-play. We got the home Mac, the home Mac, the home Mac, home Mac. D-backs Dispatch, we're here to stay. Catch us every week, we bring a play-by-play.